6 o'clock. Yeah, it's all call meeting order at 6 o'clock. I am present. Roll call Mayor Pro Tem Matt McClellan. Present. Councilmember Swinson. Present. Councilmember Moses. Present. Councilmember Cargill. Present. Councilmember Moore. Present. Fantastic. We are graced with the presence of Reverend Brink Downs for the invocation for us this evening.
Let's pray. God, you have found us together in a common life, and we are gathered here this evening out of love for our community and a desire to enhance the lives of those who call Glencoe home. Unite us in our common purpose so we can work together to love our neighbors. God bless our elected leaders with courage, wisdom, and foresight to provide for the needs of all people so that we may live in justice, peace, and truth. In this holiday season, fill our hearts with thankfulness. Help us to practice generosity and kindness in joyful expectation of the light of the world. Hear us, we pray, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
And I would be happy to lead you in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Thank you so much.
Okay, announcements. The Christmas parade is on the 23rd. 21st. Your birthday's the 21st. You said it.
It's the same.
Okay, 21st.
Sorry.
Now I'm wrong.
Sorry.
Christmas parade. I'm trying to talk about meetings and play guitar. And the burn ban has been extended to January 14th at noon. We don't have anybody sign up for public comments. That's the first. So we're going to kick it right off with ad hoc committee presentations from CMAC. OJ Armstrong.
Righty. So first off, I want to congratulate the council for signing the fair and reasonable agreement.
Thank you for your slaving away in the trenches. I know you were there with mediation for quite a bit of hours.
I appreciate it. Takes time to get it done. Yes. Next slide.
Yes, sir.
So the objectives here identified three components that we think are important to achieving goals of infrastructure. One, it has to be sustainable, it's got to be scalable, and it has to be viable. Viable, we're talking about funding. There's funds, grants, or CEOs, but we have checks and balances as to what is the most productive way to finance the infrastructure. But the main thing here is, can you switch that to where it's just the slide?
And a little button on the bottom right that looks like a projector screen.
Oh, just right here?
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
oh.
Now you can use the arrows to go forward and back.
All right. So for us, it's the enterprise fund is a very important function. One, it's our maintenance and emergency repairs, and it is a multi-budget item that needs to be set aside because there's just too many times that the enterprise funds just take it down to a near zero, and we can't fix it. So the other is to anticipate and plan for the infrastructure and support growth. So basically, we're looking at a timeline that's 30 years out, so we're looking at a little bit, and then develop a sustainable growth. One is we have to have asset management plan, a capital improvements plan, comprehensive land development plan, and then an annual review of utility. Well, I think that would quite a bit. So the main purpose of this meeting is to preface that we are going to recommend that the city hold a bond election in May of 2020. Doing that is to fund improvements to the city's water and wastewater streets infrastructure over the 2 years. And in this, the bonds will basically be for capital improvement projects. And the concept is that we're only going to sell bonds to match what the CIP would approve. And so we'll move on with the so over the 10-year period, I think that gives us time. The numbers aren't huge, but at least we have a known entity and quantity of money coming in to be able to fund this fund.
Am I in the right place or?
Yep, you are. So, whoops, there should be back one desired state. Back here.
Back.
Yeah, the other back way. Okay. So, we've been working on a comprehensive development plan. And the point here is that it's a living document. It can be changed. And so I don't want anything to get cast in stone because there's a lot of things we can't control. One of those is that there could be new laws, there could be new regulations, processes, technology over this 30-year period. So we need to have format that we follow, but it's a living document. That's the purpose of the particular use of this term. The other is that we'll have an asset management plan in place. And then also we will look at the process for development plans, capital improvement plans, utility rates, and tax structure. Okay. Next. Okay. So the key element of this program is that the city will issue bonds only in the amount and at such time that it will keep the ratio of the city's long-term debt to its total taxable assessed value at or under 5%. So it's kind of a checks and balance. Can't raise the tax rate, or you won't raise tax rates because the AV keeps going assessed value. And we have no control over assessed value. That's the county. And so what we're trying to say is that we're going to manage long-term debt and assessed value, and the ratio can't be above 5%. And that way, it's a checks and balances, both from a city standpoint and from a management standpoint. You can control the cost based on those numbers. Across broad spectrum. So the total taxable asset value of the city has increased an average of 8% per year over the last 3 and 13% over the last 4 years. So you can see that it's AV, assessed value, is what drives the amount of bond money that you take care of. a particular tranche of activities. There's no reason to believe that this trend will not continue, considering that the growth of Austin, San Antonio, and 281, and development plans of random areas. So it's kind of a sustainable recognition of how we would go about selling a bond and improving infrastructure and expansion. We are also holding inflation rate, or we use the inflation rate of 3.5% per year in our conventions. And then we're also contemplating that we could get 20% of the project costs from grants. That's very optimistic assessment, but we have to start somewhere, right? And because I don't think we can cash flow the whole deal just in the sale of bonds. We're gonna have to.
So when you say it's optimistic, elaborate on that.
Optimistic for which.
The 20% grants.
Yeah, so there,
Does that mean unrealistic?
no. Well, it could be, depending on how pessimistic you want to be, right? Yeah, so it's that there's so many small towns competing for grants that sometimes you're in the queue, and luckily we got grants for the.
Got it for the water board, but we didn't get it for the wastewater.
Right. So it's a hit and miss, and you can't count on getting it every year. So that's part of the dilemma that we'll be looking at is, can we trim that down a little bit? And if we can't, how do we improve on board the debt, which is more relationship building with certain things like that, right? So we'll just take a look at that and get to that. And so basically this is our outline. This is a 30-year program, and we are talking about $171 million in project costs. We expect 20% of that from grants, but again, that's an interesting number, and that's about $34 million. And so the balance under new debt issues would be about $130 million. Take a look at that. 52% are water projects, 21% wastewater, 27% for streets, and we're hoping that we can get 20% grant funding to fund those types of projects. And so it's definitely a balancing act in terms of the amount of dollars it's going to take. And this is a 30-year period. Obviously, this will be developed on our lifespan. So we might as well have some more going forward for the other. So
Is actually an act that you want the bond to pass for?
we'll
The
get to the bonds and there what we're asking for, because basically,
I was about to say that.
oh, okay, yeah, so it's over 30 years, and so what we're proposing is getting authorization from the citizen to sell bonds in 10-year increments. So we don't have to do a bond election every year because bond elections are expensive. And so if we can get an amount that's out there over 10 years, and let's just say for the GPD is $20 million over 10 years. We'll get into the details of that kind of calculation, but that way you can do X tranches within the tranche, right? but you've already got the citizenry commitment that allows you to sell the bonds rather than having to do an election every year. I can see. But we've done this, I've done this before in a lot of the water districts that I've been on the board with. And it's the most efficient way, because then you don't have to sit there and go, street limit, really? Everybody's going, how was it? Well, we don't know.
What you're saying, the bond elections in 10-year tranches, so basically 10-year maturities for each bond.
No. They'll be the typical maturity for the bond, but we don't have to go back to the citizens to get another bond tranche done.
Okay,
We say,
so it's still the
and
rate.
so the example would be, let's say it's $30 million in the 10-year. So that would be, you break that up over 10 years, that's $3 billion.
Oh, I see. But then each bond is still a regular.
Right, it's still within the realm of the authorization of the citizens through the board.
Okay.
But we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay. Stay with those. All right. So what we're trying to achieve here is an LTD, the total asset value valuation. And basically, we pick the number 5%. And basically what that does is it sets paying down long-term debt as AD changes. And so we always can't sell bonds that would drive that above 5%, that ratio. And so it's a checks and balances. So we're paying down debt, which means we can afford it. And the asset value is going up. So we can then get more capacity of activities. That makes sense.
And is the 5%, is that something that other cities have used? Is that, I mean,
No.
where'd the 5 come from?
So the 5 was, came from just how much we thought the city could afford.
Okay.
Because managing projects all, obviously, we could push it beyond that, and I think 5 is a good place to start, because we need to get buy-in from the citizens. That we're not gonna be sitting there selling bonds out on lawsuit, right? We've got very strict guidelines that controls the amount of bonds. And so, on average, they're probably at about somewhere 428. The next one. Okay, this is our CIP plan that we have to date right now, 2024. There's 7 years remaining, and we're talking about $20.5 billion. So again, this is some of the things we'll be looking at, comparing these numbers to the ratio that we've got to deliver, and then some are gonna have to take less money or pass on and find something else that fits within there. But at least it gives us a plan of projects that we can do. And we're going to basically, on an annual basis, deliver council a CIP for 10 years. And so you can sit there and see what we can be spending money on, what's going to happen, make adjustments whenever we see on that. But again, we haven't cast in stone yet what authorization in terms of total bond for the task force. We still have a couple things to do, but the reason we need to get it done is so we can get off. We can have citizenry informed and have approval to put it on May election to get the boss approved and sold policies. Okay. All right, so what we looked at is something has to be scalable, viable, infrastructure. And so basically, we're saying that, we present to the council approves them, you can strike what you want, don't want, what's important, what's not important, so we can constantly be updating those particular, line items. And then, what that actually does for us as the committee is, it allows us to establish a roadmap that is seamless, it's doable. We've checked the financials, we've checked the ability to get these projects done, and it should make the whole process a little bit easier.
Question, is it a fair assumption that then the bonds that would be issued, for lack of a better term, on an annual basis, just on an annual CIP plan?
But yes, it is based on the
You're not filling
CIP,
these all on your,
right, but the CIP plan will be driven by the ratio of long-term debt to AV. So it can't exceed 5% unless council approves it to be exceeding 5%. And so that way, that's the checks and balances.
priorities change or whatever.
That's right. Because then, so out of that last list of priorities, what if we only had 12 million available, right? At least 8 million left out. Now council's got a decision. What percent of each of those CIPs do you want to do? And the other pieces, get grants, and we can bump up, right? Get the go. Right? So we are making a recommendation. The first one is the 10-year bond authorization for 10 years. We need to arrive at what that number needs to be because we have to. That has to be posted at the time that we are giving notice for the live election, right? Yeah. So it gives us January, February. And so we'll be getting a lot of CIPs and you got close much on. The other is that this is the first phase, and remember, we're doing 30 years, 170 million, and that includes the inflation factor that we put in
And the grants.
to get to those 170. And so basically it's saying we can do it. Now, what may occur is that the program starts to do pretty well and like at the 7 years. And there's been good improvements and success. The citizenry might consider doing another tranche of a 10-year fund so they overlap. So instead of being 2 to 3 million in a project, you might be able to push it to 5 or 6 just by doing a tranche. But again, we've got to make sure that we're paying our debt. So that's the whole deal about long-term debt. That's it. The next item is the appointment as council to rescind the 1987 ordinance allocating a half penny of sales tax to subsidize the ad valorem. Us, that is money that can go into the enterprise fund for water. We basically are marginalizing our enterprise fund. The enterprise fund should be self-sufficient. We should be able to, whatever repairs we need, whatever pumps we have to replace, we should have a set aside of funds available to be able to do that rather than borrow from the general fund. Never pay the general fund back. Right? Enterprise fund needs to be self-sufficient. So, we do intend to, in this period between now and what was that? February 14th, we are willing to do workshops, forums, whatever it takes for everyone to have a clear understanding of how we best put this program together, checks and balances. So that's our plan. So your question.
We have a community workshop.
I think so thank you for this. This is really good. I love the plan and the plan of attack. I think it would be super helpful, at least for me, but I think for everybody in the workshops, that we could have like a multi-year cash flow projection, basically, right? Which I know you've got the bonds and everything, showing those amortizations, how much is expected to come out based on the priority of projects and all of that, and the revenue and the tax rate and all of that in order to do. And I know it's a big thing, but I'm like,
Yeah.
if we're doing this and committing to like something for like a 10-year period with a lot of bond, like we need to know what that
Yes.
looks like. And there's a lot of assumptions in there, right? You can't know exactly.
So in that, maybe we should arrange a workshop in council so you can give us guidance on the CIPs.
Yeah.
To say what's important to you, not what we think is important. And then that way we could then track that spreadsheet to kind of shift. Marks out how it gives us sure.
Yeah, sure. I think that'd be extremely helpful.
We can do that, so we can put that on the agenda. So we're just gonna do it that way.
First of all, OJ did a great job, seeing that people, a couple of them here, Steve, George, Brandon, did fantastic. I wanted to mention a couple of things. We can talk about having a workshop on December 30th. I was gonna get with y'all that was gonna work. So that would be one possibility. And then the other thing I want to mention, just fantastic comments here at the end. But I do believe that rescinding of the 87 ordinance required vote of the people. Tim will have to look at it, but it mentions there that rescinding it would require an election. So that is something we'll have to discuss, but I believe it will require an election.
And so the one advantage of that is that sales tax. People have infrastructure. That's the money for the city. Just take care of that. Just to give us some context of why that has some big deal.
You know, I like the logic you used here. It's a good, as Dennis said, it's a good approach. I would like to comment that although it seems to be improving, the city historically has a pretty bad reputation of messaging to the public what's going on. And bond elections, and certainly rescinding the sales tax for 1988, sales tax allocated in 1988, are not guaranteed to pass an election to win, but to win a
I
project.
understand.
So I think from a public relations standpoint and a city messaging standpoint and a community standpoint, understand what they're going to be deciding on. Really be educated.
Right.
It may take some subset of your committee or some folks that are in charge of how do we get the message out, and who can speak about it intelligently and say, this is why it's important.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just that we're under a short timeline, so we.
This is the PR push, assuming the city gets behind this, yes, this.
Yeah, and if that's the decision,
We
then,
got from February to early May.
yeah, well,
To message.
we have till February the 10th, right? 14th. Yeah, so, sure.
Not as far as messaging before they vote. It's in May.
Well, right,
We've got-
but they'll need the context in that
oh, absolutely.
brief period, because you would have to name the amount of the bond. So, yeah, so now that puts. You see this?
And then why did you choose this amount? Well, this is what it's for. We're gonna do this.
Sure.
this way.
I do think some of those workshops need to be close to the election themselves, though, because I think people forget. And a month before, 2 weeks before, whatever it ends up being, so they walk into a voting booth really understanding what's going on instead of 3 months prior. Not saying that early education isn't good. I think more education is good.
Right, just a reinforcement.
Yeah.
In that last couple weeks of it. Fair enough.
And honestly, my biggest fear is that half-cent sales tax. This year, let's say it's $337,000. 1987, probably not much. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that is such a huge, big impact to the town. I mean, you're talking about over the past 36 years, probably somewhere around $20 million that could have been spent on these infrastructure problems that wouldn't have put us in this position. So this is I feel like if we don't get this done, this is going to be probably big.
Yeah, I like seeing that going to credit on the tax bill though.
Are you asking for both of those for the May election? Or just the bond?
Well, now that I know it has to be, that it's not a council decision, we'll confirm that. We'll confirm this. That requires. That just expands our education program.
I just wanted to do with the workshops and education programs that those have to be virtual, right? The city can't say we're for or against the one. It's only the educational.
But you call the election, you can do education, not advocacy.
But up until then, we can say.
Oh, that's not a good idea. Oh, it's the, no. No, we just got to be moral about it.
I think the councilman understand the home side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just giving you the quick overview as we're willing to sit down and make
All right, line to it.
a couple hours. Say that again?
Nothing.
Red line to it. Yeah.
OJ, you listed water, wastewater, streets. You have a definition of capital improvements because in my experience, buildings, that could be communication infrastructure, parks, that could be a whole bunch of other things. Is that well defined? For us, it is because we only deal with water sewage. So with that definition would be our qualifier of the CIP. Yeah, so then if the city council decided they're gonna build a Taj Mahal, they're gonna find another way to fund it. They can't depend on this. Correct. And
Or go and list the bond for the bond.
Or they could defer some of the water and wastewater.
yeah, but it would have to be a conscious decision that this is outside the scope.
That's right.
of what the people.
That's correct.
Well, to your point, and I think if the council chooses that we want a park or we want a recreation center, that would need to be added to the bond.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And then the other, on the communications. This is voting out in the city with voter. Seen a lot of bond issues in a lot of communities. I would urge you to use the bond, even though their recent issue just failed, use the ISD, but they also support workshops with literature that explain this stuff. And that's gonna cost them money to do the print and all that stuff.
I'm sorry, is there a plan or point of time that you would consider for the council to enact, impact fees for the future to help with development, if it ever comes in?
We discussed various impacts.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, and your team. Wonderful work. We appreciate it.
Very happy with our feedback committee. They do fun work. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, David is not here.
He's not here.
Are you gonna, we're just gonna use?
We go to the city administration.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Be a pretty short report tonight. You said. Basically, Lori, our city secretary, awarded $500 for an education scholarship for TRMC recertification. She's real aggressive about getting those, so the city, saving city money, we have to get for certification anyway, so she got a scholarship. Great. We're gonna talk about it a little bit more tonight. The 2024 A series, it was already voted on. Council's looking at, basically we're looking at the balance of the 1.5, which will be $1 million. We'll talk about that tonight. The $500,000 was already spent specifically on the FTW on the water plant, and there were some things that went with it, as CFDs. So tonight we'll be discussing the balance of that, which includes sewer projects, but also includes the other projects that are needed as well. We'll talk about that later tonight. So the water plant progress, we have noticed that it's operational, but there are some pumps and there's some couple motors that weren't replaced from the old plant, and so they have to be replaced now. I haven't got those numbers yet from Infomark or their subs, so we should be getting that. We're probably looking at about that $40,000 range. But as soon as I know, I will send you an email. Let you know about how much the pumps are. The portal system is online. I think there's probably a couple hundred customers that are using it. There's more people will start getting onto it. And so I know people use it. So hopefully people will, and what they can do is they can look at their water usage and pretty much in real time.
Have you already gone out to customers? Because it automatically detects if there's a leak, and the system automatically texts the customer saying, hey, you have a leak. So if you're on the system, you'll automatically get those alerts. So it's good to sign up and be on there. And a flyer went out in the water bill.
That's right. That's right. The meter program is almost finished. I want to let you know, if you do a couple of complaints, you're about 15 meters left. Ferguson's basically done everything they do. The rest of those meters are kind of problem child. We are working with Infomark to get them done. Those customers know that as well. So there's about 15 left. This is always the hard part where it's like finishing a house. So we are pushing them to get that done. So we'll let you know there's just 3 left. The billing issue, we talked about this before. There's a utility billing request form. I think most of these issues are starting to get ironed out. I think people are, unfortunately for them, good revenue for the city, but they are starting to see a little bit higher bill. But I think most of those issues are getting resolved. The roller for the pothole, I think when I ordered it, it's like Ohio or Indiana, so it's making its way here. And as soon as it does, we will start looking at specific areas. I got calls from people who tried to just hand do those, but we did have a roll on, and we've seen people on it, but it was a little bigger roller than the one that got ordered. So again, thanks to the council, we have a stopgap solution on making sure that potholes and some repairs get done on the streets. Not perfect, there's still older streets, but things are improving slowly. So thank you very much. Questions, Seth? Okay, sir.
So, but then we basically skip the financial.
If you have questions on it, we can discuss it.
I thought she was gonna be here. She went to the chamber meeting, but I don't know what happened.
We can do it.
Questions already.
Yeah, we'll pick it up, we'll table it.
Yes, sir.
So moving on to chief.
Well, as you can see from the fact that I turned in, we did have an increase in crime in October, but then we started investigation in early November. Since it's still ongoing, we can't go into great detail, but several arrests were made and we're looking for that investigation. The thing I really want to jump to is this was our first year to do the food drive. And we did it in conjunction with the sheriff's office and the constables and Johnson City. And I'm proud to say that we had to call it quits early because Good Sam got filled up on food donations.
Very good.
So this is gonna be a continued thing for the police department every year, along with our Blue Santa toy drive. So I want to thank all the citizens for coming out and supporting such a great, making a great effort to support the Good Sam. I did complete my new chief's training as required by CISO, and that's done until July, and then I gotta go back. So, other than that,
Huntsville?
sorry.
You get to go to Huntsville again?
No, actually, I'll go to San Antonio for that. Much better place than Huntsville.
Chief, I know you can't announce everything and disclose everything yet, but I know you've been doing some really heroic work and pulling long hours to really impact the deeper crime that's in town, gotten off the highway into the neighborhoods. It's much appreciated. Like it's a safe place.
Well, we did see like you said, we did have some unplanned overtime, and it was about 38.6%, which is not where I wanted to be, but
You're making an impact, and it's much appreciated.
so. If, and traffic stops were down, but that's because we were concentrating more on criminal often.
I think having those things, the little flashing thing right at the speed limit change really helps.
And actually, I'm talking with Tech Stop right now. They're doing a survey on 281, traffic survey. And so I'm trying to talk with them about, or organize with them a reduction in posted speed limit. But I need their numbers first. My numbers are only so accurate.
Question for Chief?
I was going to make a comment on if they do redo the speed limit with their intersection rules, don't line up with our block size rules. So our size of our blocks here and now it's supposed to be 278 for new development. Or the only way we can accomplish that within TxDOT's intersection spacing requirements is to have 35 miles an hour. So if that's something
That's perfect.
we want to do, I think that would help. When new developments come in, help them to follow our ordinance, having to get special variances from us or from TxDOT. And it aligns with our grid that we already have.
That's the language I've been saying.
Thank you so much, Chief. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. There's two items on there, minutes from November 12th and minutes from November 26th. I didn't see anybody correct to make on those. If not, I'll entertain a motion to pass the consent agenda. Is there a second? On favor? Thank you so much. Moving on. New business number 1. TikTok ban on government phone.
This is just generally, this falls in line with a ban that's being implemented across the state. In fact, you may have seen recently in the news that the congressional legislation that was passed to ban TikTok or force a sale was upheld by the DC Circuit. It's going to the Supreme Court, likely to be upheld there. That follows in line with Governor Abbott's direction to statewide agencies to ban TikTok. That's already been implemented. This is not necessarily required by this city, but I certainly would recommend it on government devices. Obviously, it's a free country, you can use it however you wish privately. But on government devices, you would ban its use on those devices only. So,
I don't see anything in our packet about that. They're disposal.
I don't have a form of ordinance on this.
Okay, so it just comes in.
Staff would support this, like Tim said, it would support what the governor's doing. And also support most of us see other communities doing the banning this on laptops and city devices. So I guess if you're fine with it, we'll put it in ordinance form.
Yeah.
It's
I'd understood that the ordinance was already in place or under review, and so I didn't realize it needed to be prepared. I would have otherwise prepared it, but we can take care of that.
Do I have any questions, Tim, on that? Doesn't sound like a problem. Okay. Thank you so much. Moving on, number 2, city engineer contract warrant.
Okay, sorry about that. So we've had a director for about 3 years. And they've done a good job. We actually have a couple of RFQs that the city asked us to go out for. And what we're doing is really just looking at improving our engineering capabilities and possibly looking at pricing, but also looking at just different things as far as project management and consulting things. Plan review, all the scope that the city engineer does. So went out for that about a month and a half ago. We authorized that, and there were four companies that responded: SPI, Atlas Design, HR Green, and Freeland Turk. Of those 4, the interview process on Friday for 3 of them, which was SPI, Atlas Design, and HR Green. This interview committee made up, and it being George, Raleigh, OJ, Steve, and the other sheet ended up having Ken Carville doing the interviews on that. So there's basically four people doing scoring. I didn't do the scoring, and neither did the CMAC sheet. Okay, so it's those 4. And so I'm just going to kind of talk about how the process went and what the scoring. So, of those 3 firms, the way the scoring did, and then after I speak, if someone from CMAC or anyone that did the scoring wants to kind of explain some of their thoughts, they can. But out of a possible of 400 points, or I think point for each person that was in the interview, in the sheets, Atlas scored 231 out of 400. HR Green scored 258 points out of 400, and SPI did 312 out of 400. And specifically, we're really looking at the sheets. There's back and front. We looked at some of the criteria. We looked at knowledge and experience, relevant experience, post-project staffing, and relevant engineering and project management experience. So as we're going through that, they were supposed to be 40-minute interviews. They probably ended up being hopefully 50-minute interviews. I really appreciate everybody that was there and asked a question and kind of went through everything. But before I make the recommendation, I guess I think all the people that did the scoring are here. So if they have comments or issues they want to discuss, well, we do that now. And then I can get the presentation. Anyone would like to see that actually did their meeting, I'd be fine with that.
Well, I would just make this comment. I think from the perspective of our committee, CIAMAC committee, we long for contact with an engineer that can sit in and provide advisory or consulting responses to us as we, plan from our perspective. So I think, the way that's been done previously, as I understand it, is that whoever our designated engineer is, or at the moment, they would bill on an hourly basis for the time that they spend working with our community. I guess that's been maybe a little bit of an irritation for the city. I don't know where I go with this, except I think we need that access to properly do, our work.
And you're talking about possibly bringing on with this firm, a firm, whichever firm is chosen by the council, an EIT type person, engineering training type person that will kind of bounce ideas off.
That's one possibility. The only thing for me, the only other thing I would throw out there is maybe there would be someone out there who would be a small one-person firm or small firm who could provide that service for us on a contract basis rather than on an hourly basis. So we haven't even gone down that track with this step. So
I would just add, because the council's been so supportive the last few years, we're actually starting to get engaged in some real projects. And therefore, the accessibility to a team that we could call on regardless of which project, which we don't know which will have next, but it's not just, I think the irritation that Steve talked about, there was really administrative meetings with the person billing for cities need to listen to administration because of the city's position of where we were financially 3 years ago. We couldn't do anything. So I could see an irritation paying a consultant when you're not doing anything, but with council support, we have been doing some things and we're getting into some more serious long-term planning. It would be good to have that resource. And actually, which the terminology which came up during the interview I hadn't thought of, because I think we have a very good city administrator and I think we have a very good city operator of our plants, but they're an operator and you're a planner. There's not a public works director. And so even before we hire a city engineer of record that we know we're going forward, there's a lot of consulting going on here the next 2 years that would be good to have consistency with a firm who could provide the resource to you or us.
And I'll also add that Jerry Hendricks with SPI is here. If you have questions of him, you don't have to, but I'm just letting you know that he's available as well. Questions of staff before we kind of discuss where you might go.
I have just one comment on that. I put a question first. Does Ardura give you that counseling now? Are they available for questions?
Yes, I'll go ahead. Sorry.
Has this been a vacuum or do you have someone to call in besides your?
well, I don't know how to answer that. I think the answer is yes and no.
I can tell by the look on your
But,
face.
for a while, Ardura was attending our meetings and that stopped. And so I haven't been able occasionally to call them and get a limited response, but
I'll just make a comment. I think that this is a needed resource for the committee, of course. I'm not sure an engineering training would be what they're looking for. Maybe more senior engineer, like I said, what you think about somebody they could look at as a colleague and collaborator.
So the thought process for the EIP is their cost profile is a little bit lower and making them go figure it out because they're in training and this would be great training.
As long as it gives you the.
That's right. He's going back to get the questions answered and he knows who to go to versus us trying to track it down. It was just a thought,
If you're
and we
paying,
haven't run that by any of the engineering firms to think through that process.
Yeah, the apprentice, for
You're
lack of a
thinking-
better,
Yes,
lack of a better term, would be billing at a lower hourly rate, and they can come back with.
yes.
so if you're billing by the hour, which they all do, you basically want to pay the rate for the engineering training just to the 2 hour meeting and then let him go back and pay $15 or 15%, or, you know what I'm saying, portion of time to that senior manager who knows all the answers.
Thanks for the clarification.
Sorry.
So is there a city council liaison connected to the CMAC committee at all? Do you guys have a direct city council liaison? No?
I don't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So the only thing I worry about, like we talked about with engineering services, where we ran into a problem before, is not having a PMO purchase order system for having those engineers attend the meetings. And I understand what you're saying, but we also ran into a situation where we were paying out the engineers every month more than we had budgeted for the entire year for them. So I could see you guys need engineering services moving forward, but I'd like to still see it on a PO basis where I don't want to just automatically assume that you need an engineer at every single one of the meetings, unless you really do. And I still want to, I'd like to see some real cost protection and spending protection on that, because engineering bills can get real big real quick, and when they're chasing down hypothetical solutions for things and all that, they'll still come, and we're still paying for it. So I do support more engineering involvement in the CMAX. I do want to stress fiscal responsibility in the process.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the scores one more time?
Yeah, the scores are, Atlas 231, and of those, there was no one that scored them the highest. HR Green was 258 out of 400, with one person scored them the highest, and 3 people scored somebody else higher. And SPI was 312 out of 400, which was 3 of them, 3 scored them. Thank you.
Can I ask a really vague question? Is there any chance that through the contract, we can set it up to where, you know, they're gonna, the engineering firm should make substantial money over the next few years with all the projects we're talking about. Is there any way we can just draw a contract up with part of their requirement is they have one person show up once a month for 2 hours and we don't pay them for that 2 hours? Or a retainer? Sure, it's just, that's part of the contract, is they show up once a month for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yes, because there has been no contracts, John, at the moment. It's just a request for qualification to put out. No proposals have been made.
Just not.
So that's possible.
So what council will be doing tonight is authorizing the city administrator to work with the first choice of the committee, or whichever choice you want, to start working on a contract that we can approve next month.
Right.
So,
And I think the two of the guidance they give you, if they want you to configure it in a way where there's a dedicated staffer that comes around, allocated number of hours, then you have full staffing, et cetera, that sort of step up kind of stuff. That's not all the time.
that would be fine.
Or just a lower rate of $25 an hour.
I'm sorry.
Maybe it's maybe it's in the city attorney rates.
Yeah, it's more like this.
Organization for you to hurt, but you didn't give us any numbers for them. What about our bureau? Have they pulled out or?
Well, so that's a good question. Of the 4 that made a the 4 that submitted, the top 3 initially were the 3 that did not bring the term. In discussions with our bureau, we did talk about whether they would apply as well, and the reason why they said they did not want to, because they still want to be an engineer, is that they don't want to renegotiate in terms. And so, again, it was up to them, and in a competitive process, they might be a real consideration. However, because they've been doing good work, however, they didn't want to do the negotiation. So my comment to Byron was, if you're not going to want to do that, then consider whether you want to apply. If we are going to look at terms and we're going to look at different things, the council wants. That's the reason why they did not.
So if you negotiate terms with
SPI.
and they insist on terms that are radically different than
And we go to the.
Ardura, that you could still pull back Ardura and say, we like your terms better than the new guy.
Well, there's two specific options. If we can't meet anything with the first person, then I go back to council and council will say, fine, we're gonna withdraw this and we'll stay with the current engineer. Or they could instruct me to go to the second choice, which is HR Green. So it is totally up to the council.
I would want to clarify again, the position is the advisory city engineer does not presume that they are the, what we would call in the trade, an engineer of record when projects are proceeding. And all the candidates had interviews, or certainly candidates for specific projects that would come up, whether it be road or water, they all would have different strengths. And the same thing with Ardura, they don't have to be the city manager. Well, they don't have to be the city engineer to be our engineer of record. The seal side drawing, the person who's reviewing things and counseling with the city manager and with CMAC and advising the council. And occasionally, again, it's a terminology, we have Damon is the operator. He's not the public works director. So having somebody else to just say to Warren or to us or to you, yeah, Infomark's recommendation is solid. It's just.
As long as I understand it, that if we move forward, whatever choice tonight, then the next step is discussing pricing.
Yep.
That's correct, sir.
Yes. I will say, I think everybody, I've seen the pretty good consensus with most of our preference, as you put it, would be a task order type billing setup. But the pricing has not been discussed yet. Is that correct?
So what is the pleasure of council? You have a scoring of number one, number two, number three, SPI number one. Number two is HR Green, and number three is Atlas. What would you like the city administrator to do?
Okay, moving that we allow the city administrator to take the SPI to pricing discussions and negotiations.
These motions are second.
I'd like to amend that.
Sure.
When having those discussions, please, discuss with them about possibly having, monthly allotment. For their servicing or something along that line that would help our CMAC. Okay.
So is there a second?
Is that acceptable?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor? All right. Next. Thank you. Moving on.
Who's seconding?
Oh, that's, sorry. Right, you say.
I second.
Oh, second.
Thank you, Harry. Next, IT service provider.
Let's get to that point here. So we've had Hill Country, we've had Hill Country IT for 3 years. And a couple of months ago, the council approved that administrator look at an RFQ for ways to improve service, lower costs, and provide better value for IT services. There are 3 firms that responded to the RFQ, being Tech on Purpose, BC3, and Hill Country IT, who's our current provider. So Tech on Purpose immediately was removed from consideration because they don't have the CETA certification, which is required as a core as a fee. And I think you have that information there. But this is really something that was centered around cybersecurity and our need for that. So Chief, you want to talk a little bit about the process and what your thoughts were.
So after the cyber attack on the sheriff's office last year that really affected our, process, of report taking. We started looking at, and it wasn't just us, it was, Johnson City, and we started looking at, other viable options for IT services. Let's be honest, cyber criminals are getting smarter, and there is access to computers that we're operating. And to be honest with you, it's a small town. We don't have the IT services that most big cities have. They have departments that are, dedicated to this. And I wasn't trying to take away from Chris and Hill Country Services, IT services, but I wanted to really get out there and shop around and look for a service that was a little bit larger and could customize itself to us. Out of these three applicants or RFQs, DC3 was, well, one was eliminated because they're not CJIS certified. And so that left Hill Country, IP, and DC3. Out of those two, I reached out to DC3's references, and it was three other cities. One of them was comparable to us. Then there was Fort Aransas and Blue Mountain, Texas, and they all gave us stellar recommendations. They also have 471 certified CJIS technicians on their staff. So they are very well, they meet all the requirements that we were looking for. I think they can not only secure our networks for the city, but the city hall, the police department, and the court. So it's not working well. I'm sitting there holding it. And I apologize for my voice confusing.
So this is the same RFQ process in the sense that we talked to both and the recommendation is DCI and then you BC3. And you would actually be, we've been talking to these folks for about a year, but you'd actually be authorizing the city administrator, the chief to work with them on a contract. Nice.
From this to check, so do they, like the services they provide backups, the firewalls, do they do the monitoring?
Yes, they do it. They do everything from backing us up to, for example, the police department doesn't, we have a server, but it's old and outdated. It's from like 2013. And as y'all know, computers advance very quickly. And so instead of replacing a $5,000 server, they can actually move us to a cloud-based server where we'd be more secure in our data that we deal with. And they are not just CJIS compliant, but they have very high recommendations from their customer base.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Plus, they offer something that unfortunately Hill Country can't do is 24-hour tech support.
Okay, so they do have someone monitoring all the time, especially if it moves to the cloud.
Right.
One more kind of related but unrelated, I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but we do have cyber insurance, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
We just renewed our policy. It's through
Okay.
TML.
I thought so, but since it was also.
I would have to look at my phone. I have to look at what the amount is, but I thought it was $1 million, but I'll double check with the council member. We just got an increase on the cyber amount because of threat.
There's been so many threats like statewide that TML, which is Texas Municipal League, revised their whole cybersecurity policy it used to be free of charge, but we didn't get that much coverage. So now we have to pay like a minimal fee. I think it's like $1,000 a year, but it's like you said, $1 million in coverage.
So it's getting by ransom where it was freeze everything up.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
like Chief said, they're getting smarter. You have to stay one step ahead of them.
So entertain a motion to continue with discussion of DC three.
I'd like a motion on new business number 3. I move that we authorize our city administrator to negotiate an IT contract service with DT.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, board, certificate of obligation, a project list.
Okay. Okay, apparently doesn't work, I'll just speak louder. So to give you a little bit of background, this is a certificate of obligation, $1.5 million, and it was approved November 12th. And with that, the filter to waste and the VFDs took up that $500,000, so there was a balance of $1 million. And what I did was to kind of break these projects out specifically. But what I think I'd like to have council look at, if it pleases them, is to really vote on the remainder of these projects in two different things. I'd like to take the retaining wall, which is $150,000, actually $137,500. I just sent you that quote. $150,000, the portable generator, $50,000, that's for sealing the water system, the Pittsburgh lift station. Everything else has generators, but those dealt, and we need to be able to move them around. Generator at the PD, that should be smaller generators, that's probably 25, maybe 20, and 10 fire hydrants, $100,000. You're looking at a balance of $325,000. And so within this million, I'd like to see if let me do the math here. 325. So $325,000 for those, and I'm gonna say them again, retaining wall, portable generator for PD, and fire. And then after that, I'd like to have the council discuss what they would like the balance of that to be, the $675,000. So specifically on the sewer, we're looking at a possibility of Dowdy from 281 to 14, and possibly through Dowdy or not. So $40,000 or not to exceed 115, depending on how far that line would go. And then you can also look at there is also a sewer. I'll get to it here in a minute. There's also several different options for sewer on 281. There is an option that would go to rural property on 461. There's an option to go all the way to the north side, which would be about $600,000 and carry out that unit price. Or what you could look at doing is a smaller $380,000 just to go to the neighbor's convenience store. You want to mention that as we're going through these different scenarios on sewer, we're looking at cost sharing. As we bring people in and we get cost sharing, these numbers could go down and we can actually get more for our sewer. I do also want to mention that if you did something like just go to the Brewer property, there would probably be a balance of about $145,000 or $150,000 on that sewer. But you have questions of staff and you like the process of voting for those first 4 pieces first, which would be the retaining wall, portable generator, and 10 fire.
Where did these prices come from on the generators?
On the generators, for $50,000, that came from Damon. And then Chief has been talking with some people on the generator for for PD, but I think your original number was about 20,000.
That really came out right at 20,000, but that's a much smaller generator than what y'all talking about.
Are these gas or diesel?
The one I was.
This is gas or diesel. This is an up to number.
Yeah.
So if you can get it for less.
Try to do the higher price so that you're not surprised at it later on.
Questions?
I'd also like to mention one other thing is that one of the reasons why we've been looking at 281 is specifically, the neighbors to be next door. You as a council had approved some kind of memorandum of understanding or approval that they would throw in $95,000 as cost sharing. And then, on the Brewer property, we have been in contact with their attorneys that they've requested or demanded sewer at some point. So that isn't just we decided we wanted to bring sewer, it's been requested.
I know you, for at least a year, you've been saying you want to extend the sewer to the state underscore south. It's been a conversation.
Yes, sir.
I would like to see those other businesses and developers on that stretch get, seeing what they're gonna pony up before we start to get their numbers around on that. Cause I know there's a number of businesses that wanna hook up potentially up and down there. See what they look at the pony up. What are you looking for is approval on retaining wall, generators, fire hydrants, and data lane?
I would say the first, if you'd like to break it up this way, it's up to you. Retaining wall, portable generator, and 10 fire hydrants, and do that first, and deal with the harder issue second.
Okay. Okay, this first four then is what he's asking for a decision. Retaining wall, generator, and
$325,000.
So you're suggesting 2 votes?
I'm suggesting 2 votes. I'm suggesting, we talked about that. I'm suggesting 2 votes so that prove the things we need to prove tonight. And if they can't come to a decision on the other, then at least we have these 2 things.
When you're talking about retaining wall, you're talking about rock wall and concrete.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So that, if you look at what I emailed you today, that would include items 1 through 5, which would be from the bridge all the way to 281.
And the bridge is in better shape than we thought, right?
Yes, I received something from TxDOT and don't know if I sent it to all of you. I did mention that it is considered adequate or better than adequate for bridge, as per TxDOT. So the rock wall in certain places are 6 foot, in certain places are 2 foot, certain places are 4 foot. I do understand that there is an issue with exactly where the rock wall is and exactly where all the surveys are for property. We would deal with that at a later time. But the actual retaining wall would go in between where the rock wall is and the dirt. And they would actually put in pavement. That's why it's so expensive, because there's so much volume of pavement. This company that we got a quote from would go in, dig in 2, 4, 6 feet, depending on different areas, and then put in that retaining wall. Hardly ever see it. Certainly wouldn't see it from the road. You might see it if you're actually in the ditch, a little bit, but it's actually in the earth, and they will put the rocks back pretty much where they were before. I mean, maybe not more rocks maybe in different places, but essentially the rock wall will be back to where it was, and there would have to be some clearing of the property specifically, because to get that in, there would have to be some clearing.
And then we talked about diverting the flow of the creek, but right now it flows straight into the wall, which is part of the
Correct.
erosion.
But they're going to have to load cement.
Yeah, the actual visible rock is actually all on private property. The city part is all just concrete, from what I can see.
Yeah, it's only that one side. It's only on the north side that has the rock wall, everything else is.
So, I'm glad we were able to get that quote from Dirtworks, because the prior quote was about 3 times that much.
Yes, that's what.
So that's the kind of progress I like to see, but about, if you're going all the way to 21, but that's on private property.
So we're gonna have to look at that. Yeah. And we'll definitely work on it. Surveys, and we'll look at the surveys from.
I'd really rather suggest to council and city admin that you take this up on one vote. If for some reason that's not satisfactory, then you can always revisit it at a special meeting. I'm a little concerned about the notice, and I don't want to take a risk. I don't want council to take a risk, whichever way the vote goes. I don't want a risk that something fails for lack of consideration. So I would suggest you certainly can deliberate in the order you want, as city admin has suggested. But I think after you fully deliberated it, that you come to one motion and vote on one motion, instead of trying to break it up. No. I don't want a subsequent challenge to the validity of one or the other vote. That's all I'm concerned about.
Okay, so we'll discuss those first 4 things. The fire hydrants need to be done.
They have to be done. They're either underperforming or dead.
Is there potential grant funding for it?
Well, there's not. Not right now, there isn't.
Okay, those seem fairly straightforward, so let's move on and talk about the other items.
You want to talk about the generator PD? Any questions? So you're fine with those 4 items, the first 4 items you talked about. You're fine with
So far, there's not a lot of questions on those. I can't tell who's fine with what. But.
Okay, no questions that specifically on retaining wall, portable generator, or 10 fire hydrants. There's no questions. Not asking.
Okay.
Okay. So. So then the 2 options are the 2 sewer lines, the one on Dowdy and 14, 2281, and that would be $40,000, not exceed $115,000. That's the first item. And the second item is the sewer line on 281, and there are 3 different areas you go to. Go to the highest amount, which is north side town, which is $600,000. You could do the Brewer property, which is just off the buggy barn, specifically for folks who are not quite seeing in their head. That is $461,000. Or you could do just to the neighbor's convenience store, which is that property is 5 acres, but half of it's in the floodplain. That's the one we're specifically talking about. That's south of the buggy barn. So those are the different prices, and that would be at 380.
That's the one with the big Valero sign on it, right?
That's basically yes. Yeah.
And have they turned in any kind of environmental impact studies or anything?
The only thing that we have from them was what was requested when we did the cost sharing agreement, and there was basically a kind of a small set of plans, and it showed a little site plan, but that was the only thing. It was never requested for it to be reviewed as a site plan. It wasn't required. There been any requests for anything else on that? A driveway request, a building request, nothing. And it actually needs to be platted before I'd actually require it to be platted before. So the plat is not coming.
Does the vote repeat or not? I mean, because it might not pass other things.
It has the plat is a shall approved for state law, it meets all the requirements. They have to meet certain drainage requirements, and these are all handled at the staff level. There would be nothing there'd be nothing for council to review, it's just.
Well, I was just concerned about, I really Paradise Creek, because even in our own water plant, it is considered a predominant, an important.
So the answer is, just because we bring sewer to it, or water or anything else, doesn't mean that it'll meet other requirements, of the city and state. Because they would still have to get a driveway from text stop. Everything else they have to get, they still would have to get. But that's not what we're discussing today, we're discussing what you want to pursue.
Another question, the amounts you said for all three of these steps, going in, those are not to exceed.
Yes.
And both, except for the first, it's already done a cost sharing agreement. Potentially the other two potential developers that may want to do whatever they want to do there, they would share some of that cost to be negotiated.
Yes, right. And what we've set it up with neighbors is that they're contributing 25% of the costs that it takes. So that's their biggest one right now.
Potentially, those could be 25%.
Or more.
Yeah, I know Mylan really wants to get out, because they go through a lot of.
These numbers might be a little high too, Mayor, because there's a contingency in here, so.
Yeah, and I know the Dennis Moore with his neighborhood back behind Buggy Barn, one there's like 25 hookups and he's on a mishmash of septic tanks.
I guess more call we discussed options.
I think up the highway, we can get significant amount of investment, in this from the folks on the land. I'd like to see that explored deeper. This plan, does this go, which manhole does this go to? I know there's some options.
This goes to 15th Street. I know there was an idea back, and I think you and some other council members talked about going across the street, and that was never really materialized. This comes, there's a manhole on 15th Street, and you would go up north, excuse me.
Do you know the capacity, what size pipe that you're looking at?
I don't know. I think it says 6 inch. I think it says 6 inch. There we go, 6 inch.
Yeah, you could approve a top number on those three options and direct city staff to come back to you with periodic reports as he gets into project development.
Yeah.
To report on reductions achieved from various landowners and revisit it even on a monthly basis if you wanted to.
In my experience is that firm is always very high with their numbers. I mean, it's like the same company that's doing the repeat do this, but I'd like to see, competitive bids.
All I can say is there's a $116,000 contingency on them. There's a lot of things we've not all answered yet. There's $140,000 contingency on the one that goes north of the Buddy Barn. So yeah, there's some contingency built in. So in looking at the first four items and then combining the sewer, what is the pleasure of council? Do you want to include the Dowdy portion, or do you want to include the T281 portion? And if you do, which of those three options do you want? That's the question.
For the longest one on the 281 that goes to the city limits,
Yes.
does that stop right north of Geneva Hills? I'm not familiar with how those.
It would actually stop just a little bit north of Geneva Hills. Had a conversation with Geneva Hills, they'd be interested as well.
And then is there just one property north of that?
There's only one property north, and we would only go to the very edge of that property. We're not required to go the whole way north. We would just go to that property.
Oh my goodness,
It's not exactly the north end of, it's close to the north.
That's the last property.
Last property.
Okay, so there's not like someone else getting one.
That's
The low end is 380, on 281, and the top one is what?
top one, and I don't have it, is 600,000. It's 600,000 if you just took the percentage, just kept moving up.
The property on the left is covered, where you're talking about going to, it's not inside the cap. It is county address. The one where they're running the rural.
They probably just, I know, but probably just north of, Denver Hill isn't. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, the property just north of the house, just north of the hills, is not in the city. It is county. The county.
So the house that has, that rents out the.
Right, where the truck is. The old truck,
Yes, with the
that
circular.
is actually in the county. That is not the city's property.
Right, are you talking about this one up here, the church? Are you talking about
Yeah, I
that
think
big
there's a
open
few
field
other
that just
big
kind of fit across
fields.
the KC?
That is owned by, we were.
Yeah, so they're talking about running it to a set.
Right there.
I thought you were talking
No,
about.
no, well, let's go the whole length of it, we're just starting right there.
675,000.
The balance is 676.
The county is 40 to 115, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about
Yeah.
115.
Yeah, no, I don't do that. Yeah, I was pulling it up. Yeah, I would definitely want, at least for that one, especially to see a lot more work done before any checks are written. I mean, I've had the bids and I wanted to see how much we can get for those landowners, developers up and down the road.
So if you look at the map, you want to go all the way to the north end, you see it's actually above the $1 million that we have. However, $95,000 they was a neighbor who gets under the. So that's what we're talking about.
Just another developer fees, even reduce it for.
Yes,
The comment I'll make on this, I think I made it clear how I feel about this. In many ways, from especially after the CMAC presentation, we've got to have some changes in Blanco. And in my opinion, it seems that Blanco's had its head in the sand for quite a while, or at least not made a priority of the risks of not getting involved in development of the city, and also the risks of not realizing the benefit. There's at least two of these landowners up there, are two of about four that are in this city that might want, that have talked about doing housing for teachers and for affordable housing for young families. And this, in my opinion, the city needs that. We need to look in those terms. And if these people are asked, if they're asking, as you said, Warren, they own the land, they're citizens of Blanco, and they can't do anything with it without city services. And I also couple it, I feel very strong that this should have been done years ago. It was promised years ago. I think it's a city's taking a risk of not offering required city services inside the city limits of the city. So the fact that we can get started on this now, I think is great. That's like long overdue.
And the way that we pay for all the CMAX stuff and everything without killing everybody in town is by adding more taxpayers, more neighborhoods, and more businesses to help offset the expense. And this is necessary to be able to do that.
well, if you notice that the majority of funds that are being spent, the first $3.9 million, which was the Texas Water Development Board, that was 3 water lines that wasn't, it's replacement.
Yeah.
And then most of the work that CNEX talked about is replacement. It's not actually putting in new sewer and new water. So the balance of it, most of it is going towards replacement.
This expands the tax base.
How much more can our sewer system take? Right,
Well, it can handle what's being proposed at 281.
on the neighbor's convenience store.
Well, if it hasn't been asked me, because I don't know how much water or sewer they're gonna use. At this time.
I know that it has been mentioned on more than one occasion that it won't take much before we're out of capacity.
So what is required by the state is that once you get to 70%, then we have to start planning. So you put in another bullseye or update your sewer plan. So yes, you're correct in the sense that eventually that's why we have to put in either impact fees or some kind of cost sharing. If we don't, then that's what happens is you have to.
I just didn't want us to get, pie in the sky, going, oh boy, this is going to, we're going to do this and that, and we'll get this.
Well, our plan is scalable, to almost no limit. It's just adding bullseyes, and then it's just about getting rid of the effort.
Yes, sir.
What about our water capacity? Is there a direct ratio that's linked by TCEQ with the amount of caps we're allowed to the amount of acre feet we're allowed per year?
So yes, Councilman, what I mentioned, right now, there's two different things, and this for the public to know. What is being discussed is we're using about 350 acre feet out of the 1,200 we have. However, TCEQ looks at each 5/8 inch meter being at 0.6 GPM. And so if you do the math, what Councilman was discussing is saying that we're close to the limit. We're about 20 or 21 taps available. However, what we are doing right now is we're submitting to TCEQ the request for variance. I've done it before in another community I lived in where instead of 0.6, we had gotten 0.48. And of course, here I would expect more than 0.4 ounce, and I would probably list another 200 or 300 taps. Yes, we have to look at water expansion, and yes, we limit about 20 taps right now for the TCEQ. You go over 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, you're probably okay. If you go over 30, probably not so much.
Unless closer we get that.
Unless we get that variance.
Not closer we get that 70%, but. On this.
Last time we looked, we were at 54%. I could probably get with our current engineer and the engineer to see if we're still at that percentage. Probably pretty close. But we still have a little bit of time.
And that 70% is just where you have to start planning.
You have to start planning, and then at some point you have to build and finance it. So they give you a couple of years to do it.
I'm generally supportive of I think everyone in the city limit should have water and sewer. I think there's qualms about properties being developed, specifically the one on the north, but it's zoned ag currently, if I'm not mistaken, so that would have to be a rezone, you have to come to council.
That's correct.
Like, by giving them sewer, they're not just getting a blank check to develop property.
Correct.
I do think everyone should get sewer. I don't know about who should pay for the capacity of their community. If they're gonna increase the capacity by a lot, then maybe they developers have to pay some too. But I do think everyone should have at least one.
Sewer and water.
Yes.
Yeah, that's doing our job as a municipality, offering municipal services.
Are we ready for a motion or more questions?
I mean, are you still abstaining? Okay. Do we want to talk about how far? Or I guess we kind of talked about the 281.
Personally, I'm in favor of going to the more way. If we're gonna do it, I mean, we're gonna do it eventually, and it'd be a lot more efficient to do it now than it would be to do it in shops. Am I wrong about that?
I'll do all, I will, if you're talking about cost, and yes, we go all the way.
But again, I would want to squeeze that, not just squeeze the bids and then get, bigger competitive bids, but also property owners and see, I think we can offset a good chunk of this.
I will make a motion that we move forward with a plan, sewer extensions, city services. Yes. What's in that? What's in consideration that would include Downey Lane, North 281, bring city sewers in the city limits. And I would also ask that the city administrator be sure you negotiates impact fees and cost sharing with these landowners. Maybe look at it. Yes.
So the motion is pretty much, is everything in the staff report?
That's correct. Everything. Sewer extensions of the staff report, negotiate cost sharing and impact.
It's the 115 for the county, 14th Street is the higher one.
Includes that as well.
No,
Ideally, it should be the 40, but we'll see.
Also,
Okay, motion is second. Any more discussion?
I just had one question, with like, the size of the line will be determined.
He said it's an 8-inch line on the 281.
yes, and if it's any different, I'll let Thompson know.
I still would like to look at the possibility of going if it's starting that we found the available space under the highway tax that's to be used.
One clarifying amendment to that question, but obviously we should have been undersizing these comments. And we need to project forward that there may be some residential development in these areas.
Okay, correct.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I know I don't have a seat at this table, but, this goes back to the discussion earlier about the engineers of record and the city. You had some qualms about the previous estimate you had on the wall versus the current estimate. In my mind, you're talking about money here, but I assume each of these projects is gonna have the engineer of record and we'll have the full design, because I've got real issues with retaining wall. People think retaining walls are simple, but they're not. And they can do it again some days.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed and abstaining. 2 abstentions. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Moving on, old business number 1, sign ordinance.
So Mayor, Council, appreciate you looking at this like a third time. Planning Commission did a great job going through this. I'm just gonna go through a couple of items and then I'll kind of let Brandon do all the talking. He's having a lot of work, but we wanted to basically do a replacement code. I think it was 48 or 50 pages. 42. So, yeah, so we got down to about 13. So,
And do the rest of the UDC will be good.
you won't have to hear it because So some of the bigger issues with this is, how to make it smaller. Also, make sure a couple different things. I'll just highlight a couple things. We will away with pole signs and having monument and wall signs and banner signs and things like that. And then one of the other things that the planning commission really looked at was the ability to see it, make the simple sign a little bit larger in a peaceful way. So this is a standalone ordinance, and Brandon, you want to talk about the process and what you like?
Yeah, but I'll answer any questions y'all have. Hopefully you'll have a chance to kind of read through it, but it's been a year-long process, but I'm hopeful that this will be beneficial to businesses around town and return impact revenue for the city. That's really cool. Got a couple changes that I'd like to be able to make by these, very small. What y'all got?
Well, you feel like you got finished product this time?
I had a finished product last time.
All right.
Can't say it, it's Tim.
No,
That's it. We have a finished product.
that's a one sign,
Yeah.
So for any existing businesses that have signs up and all that stuff that the grandfather did.
Now, if they, my recollection, at least what used to be, if something happens and they need to fix their sign at some point, they need to. Yeah.
So this will be completely replacing.
Yes.
About their grandfather, I wanted to make sure because we just approved the sign at the library. And I think that MOU has its own, I forgot to look, I think it has its own provision in there for what happens when their sign breaks.
Now, one thing that I do want to clarify that kind of helps here is what we did to take out a lot of these pages is we got rid of a lot of the definitions in the beginning that kind of went through definitions of things that are not allowed. We can just took out everything that's not allowed, and if it says it's not listed in here, let's apply for variance. So like, let's say the library had an issue, it would just apply for variance, and then we go with what. So we wanted to be cognizant of people coming over
Mac
and not
line.
live in this world of.
Deal.
I think it's a good
Because people,
us to-
six wheeler, well, he's in contact,
I think
talk with him, and he is not.
this isn't allowed. So I'm trying to simplify it a little bit, but my point would be if there was an issue with them specifically, then they would just get a variance. And
Their existing one will still be allowed.
And if there was an MOU, that would be your reason for variance, and that would be almost automatic. And so that MOU that explains what would happen.
I think I actually remember that it says if it breaks, they can help for period.
what else?
So is this the electronic signs are not allowed?
Correct. So we originally, this started a while back when the church across from high school had asked for an electronic sign variance. Some members of council had posed the point saying if we're going to allow it, then we should change it in the sign ordinance. But when we started looking at how many churches there are, if you give the ability for, let's say you specifically said churches or certain kinds of organizations, there would be a ton of that to anyone. And we didn't think that that made a lot of sense. Now, as far as a variance for the one out by the school, that one from a informational standpoint and the lack of others around it kind of would have made sense. But we decided to not allow those currently because of just the number that would then exist. Feel free to change that if you want, but we were trying to make it where in 20 years, you're not driving down the road and seeing that's electronic sensitive.
Can you give an example of the internally lit sign?
Yeah, so, any sign that basically has a light inside that shines through some sort of an external.
Charles new sign that way, I guess, yeah.
Those have previously not been allowed. I'm not a big fan of the cheap looking plastic on the outside, but at the end of the day, we were trying to get away from government regulation and allowing people flexibility to do what they think is nice and best for the business. I think everybody's gonna have some different ideas of what's successful there. Trying to be flexible enough, but not overbearing, but still very, keep culture in our community.
And then I think our current sign ordinance doesn't allow the changeable signs, except for nonprofit. So like that's the one at Sonic or like at Old 300.
Those are already not allowed, those are always grandfathered, and
Is that gonna be allowed in the
they wouldn't be allowed, but they could come for variance if they wanted them. Right now, you've got one at Yet, one at Old 300, one at Sonic. I think there's a couple more in town. If somebody really strongly feels like that makes the most sense at their property, let's talk about it. But we were following kind of the direction that the old sign ordinance went on that in terms of having more of those doesn't necessarily make it look better. I think there's certain circumstances for January, but the circumstances are going to be very different depending on the situation.
Can we change the cost for the variance? That was.
Yes, so previously it was like $800 to come get a variance, and you were sitting here looking at going whether or not you're going to get approved. What we tried to do is take it down to where it wouldn't cost the city money to do it. The city wouldn't lose money either, and kind of open up the bridge for people that want to do a variance now kind of.
If it's denied, they still have to pay.
Correct.
What's
So
the
that's-
logic with that?
The city had to spend the time anyway. And you're talking about putting it in the newspaper.
And the notices that go out, so we're not trying to make money off the variances, but we don't want to lose money.
But there are costs incurred to do it.
Yeah. Whether it's taxes or not, yeah.
Yeah, because you have to, you have to post notice, you have to have a public hearing, publish it in the paper, do a mail out to like 200 foot around the property.
So certified.
That would be, it would be $800 and if that was variance, that was the money. Anyway. So we brought that down.
What's it now?
It's
My personal opinion is that it's not necessary.
Variance?
to do a variance.
What about now?
What's in here?
Currently it's 800.
What's in here?
That's gonna be attached to the back. I think we talked about doing 275. Okay.
Yeah, right now it's a little bit over 800.
It's $750 plus the mail outs, it's like $9 to do certified mail, it's like $8 something, $8 and some change to do a mail out.
So I think what we were in is 275, and then they incur the cost of anything additional to the city. So if you happen to live in a place where you've got to send out letters, then they require the additional cost. So we don't technically like.
Anybody else have questions?
That's good. Appreciate you working on it.
Yes, excellent work. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Before y'all do that, can you all make a motion with 2 small changes?
Sure.
So I don't have to have this in front of y'all, but basically, there's one part in here that says, the sign will be taken down in 60 days unless leased, then it will be taken down in 60 days. The second line just needs to be removed. And then there's one point in here that says, the first one is 9.03.0079. Discontinued signs.
Okay.
So I think you just take out the second part of the sentence that says unless the property is leased in which the sign shall be removed. That line doesn't make any sense.
Much more sense.
You can get it to the secretary,
That needs to be.
so she can get it in.
Okay, right there.
And then the second one,
You got page numbers on it.
0079. 00.
well, unfortunately, they're looking at a big thing with small things. I'll say that.
That's 0.
Oh, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one right here. Unless the property, so unless the property is leased, that needs to be serious.
Thank you.
The word unless, all that can be taken out.
And then there's a little bit on the next one.
Everything after.
And then the last one that says, city council enforcement officer. I think that should
In excess of 60 days, no, go ahead.
And where's that? 9.03.102.
All that can come out through the end of the sentence.
102. So near the.
I'll hang this in as well, but.
Oh, thank you.
They're all on.
I know, right?
Somewhere around there, 102.
Thank
The
you.
second line where it says city code enforcement officer. I think that's where it says. I'll hand this one to you as well.
Thank you.
Got that?
Yes.
Okay, the 2 minor adjustments that the city secretary has made.
Thank you, ma'am.
So with those adjustments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved to accept.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? All right, unanimous again. I like these meetings like this. Thank you very much. Excellent work. Very good. Keep going. Got a lot more pages to hack in here. Okay, finally, the ethics policy.
And, council, I sent out to you all a revised final version. We cut this thing at the urging of several of you. We cut it back from 20 to 11 pages. It's broken up into 3 sections: ethics, conduct, and sanctions. Very much simplified. I think I emailed these to you yesterday. I have 2 additional comments that I'm suggesting included. One was that throughout the document, we never defined who is included in elected appointed officials. So we've now got that in paragraph 1 under ethics. And then under the section dealing, conduct section dealing with media. We have a revision with the mayor, which it happens now, but we're codifying it, except in the cases of emergency, the mayor or mayor pro tem shall provide advance notice of the media stuff to council, so you're informed, and you can tell the citizens, you know, what's going on, of course. So I'm very pleased with all the comments y'all have given. By the way, Councilman, I got the one little typo change, which is no problem. That's really a typo. It doesn't require amendment. I appreciate your comments on this. It's not as nearly as prescriptive and instructional as it used to be. It sets out principles. It doesn't abrogate standing law, all the conflicts of interest laws and all those things. A lot of those are in here, but they still exist independently. There's a lot of other sort of highlighted items that I think will be very accessible to any number of now, easy to read, understand basics of the ethics that they need to conduct themselves. A lot of it's common sense, but a lot of people don't know either. So I think it's very helpful. And I want to compliment you, Councilman Moses, for instigating this, starting it off, and I recommend it highly.
Thank you for your hard work, Jim. Thank you for putting so much time into it.
My pleasure.
Everyone else putting their comments, thoughts in on it as well. Thank you.
I did find a point where there's a period missing in exists, but now because it was on the iPad, I couldn't mark it.
Well, if you find it, let me know. I'll go back through.
Will have been added period. But any discussion, anybody? I think it looks good. We're ready to pass it.
Wow. A motion to pass.
Okay. Any more conversation? All in favor? Excellent. Very good. Thank you so much. And that actually includes the public part of our meeting. It is 7:06. We're going to executive session.